you'll have to excuse. It sounds like I have macaroni in my sinuses. You know, if that's I think that's pretty evocative of what happens when you get the vid, right? Like you get macaroni in your sinuses, and then your body falls apart for a couple days. And I don't know. Welcome to the Roundtable, where we're just going to talk about that COVID-19 pandemic. Apparently, it's still a thing, and it's sweeping through our schools down here in Florida. Everybody in my house now has had it. My wife is currently sitting on the couch after having had it for 2 days. Her fever is still here. It's been totally fun. Templar is I know you do online teaching, but you're also in the schools occasionally. Is COVID still a thing up in the great white reaches of the North?
I assume so. I mean, there's always something going through the schools. So like it's never free of anything. Like there's always some disease going through there. So I don't know. There's something like it's just, get a bunch of kids in like close proximity, and it just
cholera.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Whatever. Smallpox. It doesn't like the Black Death. Yeah,
Black Death.
it's just there's always something. I don't know. I don't think I've had it in a while. It's hard to know. Because when I got it, I mostly just got like fevers. Because when I get sick, I mostly just get fevers. And I don't always, sometimes I'll get other stuff, but unless it's like bronchitis or something, I don't tend to get a lot of other symptoms, or like unless I have some sort of specific like chest infection or something. So
you're lucky.
Yeah, it's hard to know because whether I have a flu or whether I have COVID, it's just I still just kind of get a fever and feel generally crummy. So
yeah, it's the Futurama meme of like not sure if sick or dying type of thing. Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, I got it. Like we were supposed to record last week, so we're a week late with this. Sorry about that, guys. We were supposed to record last week, and then we had a holiday, and so I was behind already. And then Wednesday night at church, right before church started, well, about an hour before church started, I started feeling something, and I was like, and you know that feeling of like impending doom, where you're like, oh no, this is not going to be good. And I felt it, and I had to sing, and barely made it through singing even just one song, and was hanging out in the Discord afterwards, and I felt my vision start to go bzz, 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 like wonky, and I was like, oh no. And I woke up the next morning, felt like I got hit by a bus, 101 fever. Here we go. So
I have to say though, singing with sick though, you had like kind of a Creed thing going on. You had kind of like a raspy like thing going on. And it's like, hey, it's not a bad sound.
Yeah. I don't live up to the Creed look. Maybe that's the problem. I need to get like way more leather, way more bangles and spangles and stuff,
Sure.
Well, hey, we're not here to talk about Creed, although Creed is great. We are here to talk about the greatest movie franchises of all time bracket we have been doing. Now, we have scored round 4, and so this was the quarterfinal round. We have scored the quarterfinal round, and we are going to be moving into the semifinal round. We have 4 matchups to talk about. Before we get to these 4 matchups, Templar, as you were scoring them, anything surprising to you before we get into them?
There's a little heartbreak, few things. I would say there was only one that was kind of, I guess I was a little surprised on the direction it went, maybe 2.
Okay.
But we're getting down to it now. So it's like, this is where, you lose the chaff, right? Yep. Like the stuff that kind of made it farther than you expected it to make kind of runs into the juggernauts now. And like the few that were predicted from the beginning, or maybe not necessarily, but they kind of go by the wayside, and the favorites kind of start to emerge at this point. So in some ways it's the earlier matchups that, this is like, I'm interested to see how this lands, because I think there's a couple, obviously now there's only a couple options it could go, but I really have no idea. Some of the early matchups are fun because it's just like chaff. It's kind of like ultimately what would be chaff against chaff of but like just seeing how those matchups play out. And so now it's like things are kind of set up, like we see the lines that are being drawn. But I would say there was one surprising result from the previous round and a couple of things. So, but I'm interested to dig into it now, because I think there's some discussion about how how we see these kind of final couple going here, because I think the matchups are. Well, I think as we get down to the finals and we see what the last couple are, it's interesting to break down the franchises to see sort of like what are the strengths and weaknesses here, like what beyond just like, oh, I prefer this franchise, like what are the sort of the merits of these franchises in terms of the discussion. I think is an interesting thing that we can get into.
Without further ado, then let's move into our first result here. Batman versus Star Wars. Is this the heartbreak you were talking about? Star Wars just absolutely eating Batman's lunch?
Yeah, I'd hoped it would be closer. Like, I mean, obviously, part of me hoped for an upset. That was always that was probably never likely, but I'd hoped that Batman would have a bit of a better showing. This is not as heartbreaking as the Dark Knight losing relatively early in our superhero bracket.
Yeah,
that was a real rough one. But I can't say I'm that upset or like particularly surprised, but there's always part of you that hopes that hopes for something, the unlikely outcome. But unfortunately, we didn't get that here.
No, we didn't, and I we saw it coming, like a freight train. Star Wars is a freight train, perhaps not as much as maybe one of the next ones here. Wow.
Yeah, these two middle ones, so the Matrix and Back to the Future, and then our next one, I wasn't sure how these would go, like fairly close. Again, the Matrix, just like
one movie.
Oh man, just one movie doing so much heavy lifting. And we've been saying that, and I guess like it's worth saying. I know some people don't mind the sequels, or at least the second and third one. Like I know there's some love for them.
They're bad,
but they're not great. Like,
no.
and we've been meaning to have that conversation about the reevaluation of like early 2000s sort of stuff that it seems to be going on with, maybe because of the direction that Hollywood has gone or the general lack of interesting and quality stuff we're seeing now. This sort of reevaluation of things that were decided to be bad at the time. The Matrix was maybe part of that, because I feel like I have seen something of a reevaluation of the second and third movie, but it's really all the first one. Like the first one is just doing so much, and I really thought Back to the Future maybe because even though the third movie is kind of weaker, like all three of them are kind of generally liked.
Yep.
And the first two, I think, are, the first one especially, but the second one as well, are really, really beloved. I thought it would be enough to push it over, but obviously not. That first Matrix movie is making its presence known here.
Well, congratulations, Neo. You're going to be moving on. I don't think it's. I think with our community, knowing what our community knows, anything that's going to be a little more nerdy, I think is going to win. And so the Matrix is definitely leaning into nerddom more than Back to the Future was. I really do think. So, oh well. Congratulations, Neo. Moving on. Now, Harry Potter, just eating Pirates of the Caribbean alive. I called this one. I didn't think it was going to be that huge. 76% is overwhelming.
It's another one I was kind of surprised that went this one-sided, because there was a lot of love for Pirates. I think especially with the age group of our community, probably I think Harry Potter just kind of hit that. I mean, I guess Pirates was big around the same time, but I think the amount of nostalgia and just growing up with the Harry Potter series is just been, I think it's just overwhelming. It's just too much for Pirates, even though that's a great, very fun franchise.
And Harry Potter is more nerdy than Pirates. I mean, let's call it. When you get into fantasy tropes and fantasy settings, Harry Potter is always up there in the movies that you think of. I assume Lord of the Rings would be one of those. I assume, things like even like the very first Narnia, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. But in our community, fantasy things that are not anime are Harry Potter. And Harry Potter is fantasy. So there you go. Yeah. Moving right along then to our last one. just demolition. I just back the truck over Indy. I don't know who voted for Indy, but they were doing it for the lulz. They had to.
It seems like it. And again, the Lord of the Rings, I guess, really is at the heart of our community in a way that I maybe did before this list. I didn't even appreciate how much so it seems to be at the heart of our community. So, like Juggernaut, this is what I mean when I think, we've got a couple matchups yet, but it seems like there's a collision course. Like we're headed towards a collision course between Star Wars and Lord of the Rings here. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but Lord of the Rings has just been on dominant this entire bracket. Maybe more so than any other entrant in any of the brackets we've ever done. I think the Lord of the Rings has been the most dominant. I think. I don't.
They haven't gotten any less than 75% at all.
I don't know if they've gotten less than 90%, to be honest. Like, I don't like maybe even less than 95 or like low, like 93. I'd have to go and look at what the results were, but like, I don't think it's had below like low 90s in terms of result. So this is, I think, the most dominant run we've had in any bracket ever. Like, I'd have to go back to like see maybe if the Lion King did something similar in our animation bracket or something like a few years ago. But I don't think anything has been as dominant as Lord of the Rings has been.
Yeah,
so shout out Indiana Jones, but
yeah, good luck getting rolled over by the boulder that is Lord of the Rings. As we do, this was our quarterfinal. We're going to be live voting, or at least I'm going to be live voting on the semifinal matchups right now. You will be able to vote on these as well. It'll take you literally 5 seconds. It'll probably take you longer to open the link than to actually finish these by clicking and submitting. So stuff the ballot box. The link will be in the do-the-dos below. We're also going to share it in our bracket challenge channel on Discord. You can head over to Discord and hang out and talk with people there. We've got a couple of interesting matchups right here. The Matrix versus Star Wars. I think this has to be where the Matrix ends. It has to be, right?
It's been a good run. Like I can't see it overcoming. If it beats Star Wars, like that's, I mean.
So I do see what you did though. You made Solo the poster for this one, kind of subtly saying like, hey, remember Solo, it sucks. You should probably vote for the Matrix. Did you do that on purpose? Or was this sort of Orwellian, not Orwellian, is this sort of like a Pavlovian response to seeing Star Wars somewhere?
Hey man, it's not my fault that if I want to change the movies from one round to the next, that there's not that many good Star Wars movies to choose from to put there.
Match fixing. This is match fixing. This is what this is.
I mean, it's the Matrix Reloaded. It's not like I went back to the original one. I didn't go back to the first one. It's the second one. So it's not like I'm putting up against like, if the Matrix makes it to the final, which I don't see happening, I will go back to the original Matrix poster. But hey, man, there's just not that many. I've already done a lot of the older ones. We've had a number of rounds now.
I know.
I'm not going to give it the Empire Strikes Back or something. So, you
should.
Solo it is. If it makes the final, which I expect it to, then it'll, I'll put Rogue One or the Empire or something like that for its final matchup. But
that's fair. That is absolutely fair. I am voting for Star Wars. One thing I did want to talk about with the Matrix Reloaded real quick, though, you were talking about the reevaluation. So the Matrix itself is fine. There is one scene in the Matrix Reloaded that sticks with me, and it is the 1,000 Agent Smiths fight in kind of that back alley.
Sure.
That is overwhelmingly cool. I think the rest of the movie kind of sucks, but that part is overwhelmingly cool.
And for its time, I was actually just seeing part of a Corridor Digital episode where they were looking at that scene, because at the time that was like groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And even at the time it looked a little like, okay, like, but for the time, what they were trying to do there, that was like incredible, of having hundreds of these figures like all fighting against Neo. That it was pretty incredible. And I remember seeing that in theaters and being pretty like blown away by that scene.
Yeah.
Because it was having like totally digital like figures fighting each other. And so that scene is really impressive. I thought you were going to mention the scene with the guy in white where he like goes on a philosophical rant for like 15 minutes as the scene that stands out though.
With all of the TVs are all around
with all the TVs behind it. Yeah, I thought it was going to be that scene that you were talking about, because I mean, who can forget who can forget all the interesting things that guy says.
What's his name? The Oracle? Is that his name? The Oracle?
The Oracle is the old lady.
Right. Right.
That guy, I don't know, game master.
There it is. Yes, the dungeon master.
The dungeon master.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, he's the dungeon master.
Know. Yeah, remember that movie, guys? Yeah, that's what you've all been voting for this whole time.
Yes, exactly.
I know the first Matrix is great. I know it's a great movie and it's iconic and it's one of those kind of watershed moments in the history of cinema. But like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like, there are more than one movie. There's more than one movie.
Harry Potter versus Lord of the Rings. This is probably the sternest test Lord of the Rings will face before Star Wars. If it's going to get beat, Harry Potter is going to give it a good run, I will say. I still think Lord of the Rings has enough juice to edge it out, and that's who I'm voting for.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Harry Potter, this is going to cause more people to pause than anything else that Lord of the Rings has come up against.
Interesting matchup. We'll talk about it, assuming it ends up being Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, although I guess we can't assume that. It feels safe to. Different series in that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is like kind of strong from top to bottom. Like people might have different favorites in terms of which of the three movies they enjoy the most, but all three of them are considered to be quite good. Whereas Star Wars, as we've talked about at length over the history of the Roundtable, at least in my opinion, really only has a couple kind of high points and like a lot of meh and like a lot of not so good, but obviously is enormously impactful and probably more so than the Lord of the Rings in terms of pop culture, generally speaking.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings is beloved certainly by nerds, certainly by fantasy readers, and it's an enormous franchise. I don't mean to discredit it, but like, there's the three movies. They did the Hobbit movies, and then now obviously we're getting a few more things that not of good quality.
Nope.
But I think the impact on broad pop culture and sort of general knowledge, like of people who aren't into fantasy, who aren't sort of in that space, Star Wars is just much greater, I think, in that. It's just kind of got its tendrils in everything in a way that Lord of the Rings, I think, doesn't. Anyway, we'll get to that matchup when we get to it. But Harry Potter is similarly a massive franchise that has its kind of fingers in everything. And also, like, maybe it's a little more inconsistent than Lord of the Rings, but I would say, generally speaking, the quality of the films is better than Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like, I would say overall, you take the first two movies for what they are. They're mostly aimed at kids, like for younger audiences. But really from 3 on, I think they're all like very solid to great movies. And just a very strong movie franchise. Again, like it has all of this other stuff. And again, it's very influential in terms of overall pop culture, but just considering movie franchise against movie franchise, it's quite strong. Like I think, and I guess we are counting. Did we do Fantastic Beasts as a separate series, or are we counting that with Harry Potter?
No,
I don't
it was
remember.
It was a separate one. It didn't make it.
Separate.
Yeah, it didn't make it into
that's
the.
right. It didn't make our initial cut.
No.
So especially counting that without those to kind of drag it down, it's a very strong series and has had a lot of impact. And again, probably more so than Lord of the Rings in terms of general pop culture.
You and I have been doing podcasting and talking into cameras about nerd stuff for a couple of years now, and I've never asked you this. What's your favorite Lord of the Ring favorite movie in the trilogy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy?
Okay, so in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Okay, sorry, I thought you.
It's tough, right?
Yeah, it is tough because there's moments in all of them that I love, and I don't think there's a weak link. I think it's mostly just preference. Probably Two Towers.
I Two Towers, outside of like if you could put the Rohirrim speech before.
That's the thing. There are moments in Return of the King that are like
It's
can't.
huge.
I think are kind of the pinnacle of it. And the Charge of the Rohirrim is like one of those scenes in cinema that just is like kind of untouchable to me.
You want to feel if you want to feel things that day. Like if you have a day that you don't feel alive, go watch that on YouTube. You're gonna feel things
every time. Doesn't matter how many times I've heard it. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen that scene. And like I'm not remembering the actress's name who plays Eowyn, but she's so good in that scene.
She says death and she's screaming death and pointing her. Yeah.
Oh, and her little talk with
Mary.
Mary. Right? Mary. Is so good. And like just man, that scene is just incredible. And while I don't and I'm honestly kind of
you're talking yourself out of it.
No, the joke about like the Return of the King and like having a million endings and it just refusing to end, and that people using that as a knock on it, like it's a huge story. There's a lot to wrap up. Like there's a lot of threads here that you have to do. Could they have done it in a bit of a neater way? Maybe, but like it just kind of requires you to have a lot of endings. There's a lot of stuff to wrap up.
The books do too. The books have like 4 different endings.
The books do too, and the books have even more because they have them returning to the Shire, and then the whole battle with Wormtongue in the Shire,
Yep.
which isn't even in the movies.
Yep.
Spoilers for a
Yes,
book series.
they win.
It's like
They win,
like
and they still go off to the great haven. It's fine.
Spoilers for like an 80-year-old book series.
Yeah.
But like, but I do feel that complaint a little bit. And like the Return of the King, I think there are moments that don't work as well, maybe, or like there is stuff that doesn't quite, but there are scenes like some of the highest points of the series are there. But the Two Towers, like right from the beginning with Gandalf and the Balrog,
Yes,
falling, like starting from there.
Yep.
I mean, having their obviously in the extended editions, have like fighting that whole kind of showdown. Also, we see. Oh no, that's Return of the King where we get the Smeagol backstory, right?
That is the very beginning of Return of the King. Yeah.
Yeah. Two Towers, though, like the Battle with Isengard, obviously Helm's Deep, which is great.
Gandalf coming over the hill on the third day, like that's huge.
Oh yeah, the charge down the hill. Fellowship is great, but it's a little slow to get going. And there's some moments in it that are awesome. Return of the King is great. It is a little long. Not that I'm really complaining because again, it's awesome. But yeah, I think the Two Towers, just from start to finish, is the one I probably just is kind of moving. It's moving along. We're in the middle of the adventure. There's no setup and there's no wrap up that comes from the beginning of its trilogy or the end. We're just kind of moving. The ends are great. The battle for Isengard is great. So yeah, I'm a big fan. So probably Two Towers.
Yeah, I think it's Two Towers for me too. I also think the chase scene at the very beginning, there's something so cool about thinking, you know, this is me being a fitness and kind of endurance and kind of strength athlete as well, but like watching that sort of like there's a dwarf trying to keep up with an elf, trying to keep up with a human, and they're chasing orcs who don't slow down. Like there's just something so cool. And it immediately from the very beginning, you're right with the Balrog thing, but even that part, it's just we're off and running. And I think it's the same thing that makes Empire my favorite Star Wars. It's dead in the middle of this huge story arc. The first one, so New Hope is a tired story. Fellowship of the Ring, it feels a little tired to me. Like I and maybe it's because I've seen it way more times than anything else. But like outside of the battle, well, I was going to say the battle even on top of the hill, but like there's a lot of action, but most of it is just kind of like, okay, I kind of know. Like there's not a whole lot of like army big action. It's all within the sort of party until the very end when the orcs attack. Or the Uruk-hai attack. So I don't know. I would agree with you though. Like the swing part of that story, kind of ending on a hopeless note, feels very good in a story. Again, you go to Infinity War as well. Same thing. Of like ending on that hopeless note feels good to me.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I'm with you on that. Yep.
Put your favorite Lord of the Rings, as I cough out some macaroni, put your favorite Lord of the Rings into the chat. We would love to hear it. Go vote as well. Templar and I will be coming back next week with the result of this one, plus the final showdown. Templar, before we end, anything else you want to say to our brave audience, our brave family?
No, vote for the Matrix.
Stuff in the ballot box. We love you guys. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.